Hi everyone, my name is Alex Shelkovnikov. As Pavlo mentioned, I'm a founder of Semantic Capital, which is a fund investing purely in decentralized technologies. It's a fund that's supporting outstanding teams that are building decentralized tech, and our horizon is long term. Before that, I ran Deloitte's investment fund in London for 3 years, and I also started Deloitte's blockchain business in London, which I ran for the past 3 years as well. As Pavel mentioned, it was a team of about 25 people, and the focus was mainly to build decentralized platforms and applications, and also advise clients on how to do that. So today I want to talk to you about the horizon, about the future, about blockchain and crypto. But I'm not going to talk to you about Bitcoin and Ethereum. I'm not going to talk to you about exchange rates. You can read all that at CoinDesk. What I want to talk to you about is some practical examples and some considerations in both the enterprise and consumer and institutional world, and how people think about deploying, building, developing, and using decentralized infrastructure and applications. So, enterprise adoption. Blockchain is an amazing technology. For the first time in history, it created a way to exchange value globally in a trustless way. And therefore, blockchain for some time has been touted as the next big technology that enterprises should use. And a lot of corporates and enterprises in the West, especially in the financial services world, started looking at blockchain technology and seeing how can we fit this technology into what we do. And we as Deloitte, when I was there, we were quite early jumping on the opportunity, understanding why blockchain technology is important, and actually we started building solutions and applications which addressed this opportunity and helping clients figuring it out as well. However, what we quickly found was that the evolution of blockchain technology and applications is still too early for corporates to actually adopt them and replace their current systems and infrastructure and legacy technologies completely. Blockchain technology is still raw, and for the most part, it can't go into production-ready platforms. So therefore, I think the conclusion is enterprises will adopt blockchain technology. However, it's going to take quite some time. And for that, developers within the decentralized community will still need to do a lot of work, because when enterprises adopt a technology, they need to be absolutely sure that it's bulletproof, it's scalable, it's production ready, it's secure, and they know how to manage it. And there are resources who can help them manage it as well. So what should enterprises do then with this? Well, definitely not ignore blockchain technology. That's a very, very bad strategy. Enterprises should definitely embrace blockchain technology, and we see a lot of them do that. However, they shouldn't be investing big amounts of money initially. They should actually start testing and trialing and play around with it, and start building on a small scale and really measure the benefit of those applications and platforms. Many people say blockchain is going to change everything and you absolutely need to install it, etc., etc. Well, actually, we at Deloitte, when I was there, we used to tell clients to not use blockchain technology as often as we said to use blockchain technology. Because there are many cases where blockchain technology does not make sense and where centralized applications still prevail. And it's going to be happening for some time, and it's normal. However, there are some areas where decentralized tech definitely makes sense, and this is where enterprises should definitely start building capability, start learning, start developing their internal talent, and start learning how to develop these applications or how to collaborate with people who can do that. And we are witnessing the new economy that is forming right now. So if corporates want to stay relevant, they need to find a way how to stay relevant in the new economy as well. They have no clue how to do that at the moment. They're used to living in this big market, traditional market, and they found their way and they found their business models, and they're happy. However, what we're seeing is technology disruption comes really fast, and the disruption happens very quickly. So unless enterprises start to learn now and start to think now what sort of role they're going to play in this new economy, they're going to die. Some of them will die slowly, some of them will die faster. And therefore, another big question for them is, how does their business model look like in this new economy? And what does it do to their business? And what are the steps that they need to take in order to actually be relevant in this new economy? And this new economy, by the way, is almost completely detached from the traditional economy as we know it right now. So the economics and the business models are completely different, which means from a behavioral standpoint and their philosophical standpoint and their culture standpoint, there needs to be a big shift that they need to take. So what are the big topics that we're seeing globally in London and Hong Kong and New York and other big centers of especially financial markets? Well, one of the very big opportunities for enterprises where they can use blockchain technology is actually regulatory compliance and identity. The cost of compliance for big organizations is growing every year. Just for financial organizations, cost of compliance is in the tens of billions dollars every year, and it keeps growing. And the way they currently address this problem is by hiring more people. So they hire more and more people to manually process all these compliance requests that they're getting, and regulation keeps changing, so they're having to hire more people, and it's a never-ending process. Well, blockchain technology actually offers a very good platform and opportunity to change that. And we started to address this opportunity by building an identity management platform called Smart ID. So imagine you go into a bank and you want to open a bank account. A bank manager would ask you all sorts of documentation, your copy of your passport, copy of your utility bill, copy of your driving license, and you produce that documentation. They take all the copies and they store them somewhere in a file cabinet. Then you go into another bank and you want to open another bank account. The bank manager asks you exactly for the same thing. They take those copies, they store them somewhere on the table, and you as an individual actually lose control over your own identity, because now you have copies of all your identity split all over the place. It could be lost, it could be somewhere in the trash. So you're at risk as an individual, and it's not very efficient to do as well, because you're having to do all the same tasks all over again. Well, the bank manager on the other side has to do all this duplicated stuff every time, all over again as well. So it's a huge inefficiency that exists out there. And blockchain technology actually is very good because of the intrinsic properties such as security, such as controlled environment, such as universal database, etc., to be able to combine all these things together and produce one platform where you could securely share your identity in a controlled way, and you could revoke access to your identity from every organization that you don't want them to have access to anymore. And that's what we started building, and we've open sourced part of the platform. We built it on the private instance of Ethereum, and what we quickly found is that this platform is not scalable. Because every time, if you want to get endorsed by an attestation provider, say I want my passport to be endorsed by the government, I need to pay for that endorsement transaction. And as the price of Ether goes up, that transaction becomes more and more expensive. Now, all my supplies and all my ecosystem and all my business model is designed in US dollars or British pounds or other fiat currencies, because corporates work in fiat currencies. And therefore, the business model of this system becomes unsustainable. So there needs to be a better solution to this problem. And there are other approaches like stable coins which exist, etc., but the point is blockchain technology is still just forming. And these sort of solutions, in order to be adopted on a mass scale, global level, they still need the infrastructure layer to catch up. They still need these platforms to develop and become really robust and economically sustainable solutions. The other big opportunity is obviously in financial infrastructure. Central banks, investment banks, commercial banks, stock exchanges, insurance providers, all will be disrupted potentially by some of the new players that are now emerging, and they're building their tech on the blockchain. One of the last investments I did at Deloitte was in a capital markets platform called Settle. And we've combined Smart ID with Settle. We've integrated Smart ID for onboarding and identification. And we've used Settle, which is a private blockchain, in order to provide payments platform and clearing and settlement. And we've shown how merchants could accept payments from usual people for coffee and cupcakes, and how can they settle real time with no cost. Consumers used a smart card to do payments, and merchants instantly got their funding, and they didn't have to pay anything for the transaction. That all happened outside of the Visa and MasterCard network. So this provides a huge opportunity for merchants and for businesses and for the whole financial market to actually start using this alternative infrastructure. Now, we've done it on a private blockchain for a reason, because we needed specific, to achieve specific parameters from the transaction scalability point of view, from the speed point of view, capacity point of view, from the privacy point of view, etc. Again, public blockchains are still developing in all those areas, but they're still not there. The other two big areas are trade finance and supply chain. Supply chain is a huge opportunity, enormous opportunity from a dollar perspective. And the biggest value would come from having transparency and traceability of all of the supply chain and all the interactions that happen between multiple parties in the value chain. And finally, asset tokenization is going to be huge as well, and for enterprises, I think, especially. Where you had illiquid assets previously, like real estate or like oil or gold, etc., these things can now be tokenized, and they become liquid right away. You can split them and sell them and trade them, and therefore what the blockchain technology lets you to do is to make illiquid assets into liquid assets instantly. Imagine the scale and potential of the opportunity when all of the retail, real estate industry, or the gold industry, or the whole market of commodities moves to blockchain technology and tokenizes it. And institutional players come into the crypto markets as well. So what we knew up till now in terms of crypto markets and how they behave is going to change very soon. When big institutional players like hedge funds come in and start playing this market, all of your little trading models that worked up till now are going to be obsolete. So you better follow what happens when those guys enter, because some of the things that you consider to be rational in this irrational market are not going to work anymore. And it's going to be both great for the market and also potentially challenging. Obviously, when huge money come in, and some of those money are already starting to come in into the market, there's going to be huge demand for crypto assets. But at the same time, those players are coming in for probably trading purposes. So they have their own models, they have their own approaches, and therefore there's going to be both upward and downward pressure on the markets. So be mindful of this. There are also new instruments which are being developed, like ETFs. And you all know that the Bitcoin ETF by Winklevi Brothers was declined, and now it's in the second review process. Might be approved one day. There's also Ethereum ETF that's in the process of approval. But there are other investment trusts which already operate, and they let big money to come into the system. Now, when big money comes into the system, it's all great, but it's not all that great all the time, because the market starts to perform differently. So be mindful of that. And I wanted to talk to you about consumer adoption and successful applications in consumer world. I'll move on. Oh no, I'll come back, fine. I'll mention a couple, but there are not too many, as you guessed. One of the best consumer applications currently in the blockchain world, not many people realize it, it's the Ethereum naming service. Really, really good application that works up till now perfectly, and people are able to register their Ethereum names by using a smart contract, no interaction with any human person required, and it works really well. The other successful applications might be wallets and exchanges. However, we all know that people have had troubles when interacting with especially crypto exchanges, because sometimes some irrational things happen. So therefore, the exchange market will still be changed quite significantly, in my view. And there are not so many more applications which are successful. Probably the other one to mention is Bitcoin itself. And the most successful application of Bitcoin is not what it was designed for. It was designed for as a payments platform, but it's used as a store of value, as a replacement of gold. Still a successful application. But we're waiting for many more to come. However, for us to see many, many more successful and scalable consumer applications, we will still need to build infrastructure for that. And there are critical components of infrastructure which are still missing. And this is a huge opportunity for us as investors, and this is a huge opportunity for people who are building this technology out. I've listed some of the areas which I think is a good list of areas. And I've had experience of trying to build applications, and some of these elements have not worked as I wanted them to work. If I wanted to scale my application to millions or tens of millions of users. I think identity is going to be a huge topic, and many people are already trying to address it, both from the enterprise side and from the consumer side. It's still not solved, and there are still many, many questions to solve in identity. And designing a robust and well-working economic model of identity management on public networks is not easy. How do you encourage people to share their identity with other parties, and how do you encourage other parties to attest those identities? And how do you encourage people to store identities securely is still a big question. Privacy is another one. And you'd think privacy is something that only consumers want, only those guys who trade Bitcoin or buy some illicit services online. Well, no. If you look at the big market in trade finance or supply chain, it's not going to work unless you solve privacy. Transparency is a great benefit enabled by blockchain technology in supply chain. However, none of the counterparties would be willing to share all the information about the trades and interactions that they do across the supply chain. You need to solve privacy and transparency at the same time. And that is a complex, complex challenge. Unfortunately, I'm out of time, but you can see the other areas. I think security is going to be huge, and therefore, if you're building a protocol or an application that touches on security or identity or actually any of these areas, come and talk to me.